with the most recent Omega Strikers patch 2.3 launching about 2 weeks ago now, and the new addition of a brand new striker called Feeney. I think it's time to actually update the tier list for the game. It's going to be a 2.3 Omega Strikers striker tier list. Going to be getting into this. I'm going to actually be going through both forward and for all the strikers, and then like a second half of the video I'll be going through all the strikers yet again and ranking them on the list for goalies. So just like last time, if you guys missed my last tier list video for the past, I think it was 2.2 patch, you guys can go check that out. I'll leave a link to that at the end of the video. Because a lot of stuff has actually changed, and there is actually a lot of different stuff because there was also a micro balance patch, and they changed out a few of the awakenings, and there were some buffs and changes to some of the items and that thing as well. So without further ado, I'm going to get right into this. If you guys like these types of videos, leave a like, subscribe, share the video. I also do stream a bunch of stuff over here, including Mega Strikers. I got a Road to Rank series going on, probably for a little while yet. And then a bunch of other stuff, Apex Legends, Overwatch 2, Pokemon Scarlet and Violet. If you guys like any of that type of stuff, feel free to subscribe. Without further ado, let's get right into this. Now it's going to be a list. I'll throw it on screen for you guys right now. It's going to be a list for your like mid-tier ranks, like your average players. I'd say probably from like mid-tier silver all the way up to like mid-tier plat. Not for your top 500s, not for your top 100 players or your like really good pro players, whatever rank that would really be. For like your average player list. You guys can take this in consideration either for casuals or for ranked. It can work for both. Even though casuals, I say if you're just playing casuals, it doesn't really matter what you play. It's mainly kind of for if you're like 3 stacking or if you're solo queuing and that type of thing, mainly for ranked. I'm going to put it into a perspective mainly for solo queuing, because if you're 3 stacking or even like a duo, the games are a lot easier because you have somebody to play off of and you have to rely on a random person. So mainly going to be solo queuing just for your average players. Let's get right into this. It's going to be we're going to start with the forwards and how every striker actually does as a forward. Start with Aimee. Aimee, I'm going to put it A+ tier. Recently got nerfed. She got her ult nerfed, I think a little bit. I think the duration or the cooldown got nerfed. And I think the knockback on her teleport ability, where she's able to like teleport and knock something back and do damage, that got a bit of a knockback nerf recently. She's still incredibly good. And just keep in mind as well, like the stuff in S tier is the stuff that's you're going to probably want to be banning. Like the majority of the games are like must picking. It's all the stuff that's like justifiable of a ban pretty much every single game and like most of your games. That's kind of what S tier is kind of going to be. So next you got Asher. I think Asher's A tier. At least for like a forward, I think she's just average right now, nothing crazy. Atlas got some buffs. He's a lot better than he was, but I still think as a forward, he's only like a B tier. And that's kind of being generous. It really is. I think he's a lot better as a goalie. I don't think you're really going to be seeing him as forward that much, but he can work. I think there's a lot better strikers in the game that kind of just do the similar job to him as a forward right now. Like similar like Ash. Like Asher does the same job as him as a forward, and she just does a lot better. There's a few other strikers that do the same thing. Ricard, the definition of average. Extremely average. There's nothing crazy about him at all. Just a really consistent striker as a forward. Dubu, I'm going to put in S tier. I mean, I guess I wouldn't really say S tier. As a forward, I'd probably put him in A+ tier. I think he's really good as a forward. I think as a goalie, he'd probably be S tier. But I think as a forward, I think he is definitely incredibly good. For some reason, they keep buffing him. I think he got some cooldown decreases recently as well. I'm not sure if they actually reverted that with a micro patch they had about a week or 2 ago, but I have not noticed any difference, so I think he's still incredibly good. Era, I think as a forward, Era's just not really good right now, y'all. Like I feel like Era is just way too passive. The only time Era is going to be good, like don't get me wrong, Era can be good, but you have to be playing as a duo or in like a 3 stack with like 3 people on a team, and you guys are all in a party and you guys are all playing together. If you're solo queuing with Era, I feel like she just doesn't do anything, and that is the problem with her. You're relying on randoms to take your boosts and like in your speed boost and all that type of stuff, and being more of a supportive striker. Like you're kind of putting a lot of like faith into your team to try to actually carry the game and like just buffing the rest of your team. If you're playing with solos and you're solo queuing, 95% of the time the people you get on a team are probably worse than you are. So you're kind of just trying to buff other people for no reason, and you're kind of just wasting your time. And if you can't do that, then she's just way too passive, especially with a lot more of like some of the more aggressive strikers that just like to bully. Stuff like Juliet, X, that type of thing that just really like to get in your face and just try to bully out Zentaro. There's also another striker that's been incredibly good after he got buffed recently. They just go after you and you can't really do anything. I think she's kind of underwhelming. I think the main problem is like she's bad in solo queue as a forward. Just not really good. She's more of a team type of striker. Like if you're in a stack with like two, as a duo or a trio, that's when she gets a lot of value. If you're solo queuing, she's just not good. Estelle, I'm gonna put A+ tier. Really good right now. I think Estelle's actually better than Vice for this current patch. I've been seeing Estelle do a lot better than Vice has been doing. And even myself being like my highest played striker, my most played striker is being Vice. It's been a lot harder to actually get Vice to actually work for this patch. So I wouldn't say Vice is bad either. We might as well talk about Vice right now. Like I put her at like an A tier. Like she's average. Like I wouldn't say she's good as Estelle because they kind of do the same thing. If you want like a medium to long range striker that has a teleport as well and a really like a more spammable ult, I think out of both of these right now, you're gonna be picking Estelle if you want that type of play style. But Vice ain't bad. Still really good. I just there's just a few other options I'd rather pick over her, especially as like just for like a forward. But if you're good with her, I think she can still work. Juliet S tier. Incredibly good. They nerfed some of her cooldowns, and they gave her, I think, 1 or 2 more second cooldown, I think, on one of her two of her abilities, and she's still incredibly good. She is just probably the best bully type like striker in the entire game. She just bullies everybody out with how much damage she does. The only thing she really needs is to get like 1 or 2 awakenings going. She has a really bad early game, but like her middle to late game is where she really shines, where she's able to start building damage and stacking awakenings and items. That's when she starts to get really good. The longer the game goes on, the Juliet gets better, and that's kind of how she really is. Like, don't get me wrong, she can work like early game too, like for the first set and that type of thing, but just kind of comes down to the enemy team being bad. Juno. I'm going to put Juno at an S tier. Incredibly branded. I think actually at the point where Juno needs to be banned every single game. I don't know about you guys, but when I'm playing ranked, like the striker I ban every single time or vote to ban is Juno. Or Juliet are the 2 strikers that I try to ban the most currently. She's just crazy. Her entire kit just plays the game for you. Like that, you throw down deployables or like creations, I guess, and the creations just play the game for you. You don't really even need to do anything. You can be anywhere on the map at any time with your abilities. You always have a presence in the game no matter what you're doing. Even if you're not like actually in there fighting the enemy team or going after the core or trying to do damage, you always have stuff that's doing stuff for you and getting value. It's crazy. I think Juno needs an entire rework because she is not healthy for the game. She is not. She is just really, really bad to play against, and she is just so annoying. And if you do not ban her and she gets through, it is just a nightmare to play against. It really is. Don't get me wrong, there's bad and good Junos as well, but like she's just so easy to play. Like she pretty much plays the game for you, and that's the main problem. Even if you're like a bad Juno, you're always doing something and you're still getting value no matter what. Even if you're just clicking buttons and throwing out abilities. That's kind of the problem with her. I think she's just too easy to play and she needs to be entirely reworked. I'll talk about Feeney at the end. Kai, as a forward, I'm going to put him at an A tier. Nothing crazy, just average as a forward. Octavia, I'm going to put it an A+. Just for the main fact that she's really dependent on what awakenings you get. If you can get like a speed boost awakening at the start of a match for like the first set, like off default is loading into a game, and you're consistently able to get good awakenings going forward, that's when she becomes crazy. But if you're getting like a lot of the speed awakenings like sniped away from you at like when you're trying to pick the awakenings in the awakening draft, and you're losing on a lot of those, and you're being forced to pick like a lot of random items or build stuff that you don't really want to build, that's when she becomes kind of bad and just kind of average. She's more like situational. If you can get a good awakenings and like mainly the speed awakenings or the stuff that increases buffs and that type of thing, then she's really good. But if you can't do that, I'd probably put her like an A tier. But I'm gonna put her an A+ tier because I think she is really good. And from what I've been seeing her, at least from being played recently, she's been doing really, really well and winning a lot of games. So Luna as a forward, B tier. I think the main thing about Luna is she has like a really crazy spammable alt. I think the best thing about Luna is her alt with how much damage it does and how spammable it is. Apart from that, she's a really high skill striker to actually learn. If you don't know what you're doing on Luna, then you're kind of just throwing most of the time. Like, she's kind of just an alt bot, and that's the problem with Luna right now. Don't get me wrong, she does a shit ton of like insane amounts of damage with her alt. But apart from that, if you don't know what you're doing, she just doesn't do anything. Rammus, I'm going to put it a C tier. The problem with Rammus is he is a one map chump. The only map you're going to be prioritizing him on is Aimi's app. And apart from that, you're never going to really be seeing him, and you're never going to really be playing him. Yeah, I mean, I guess you could play him on other maps if you're really good with him, but there's just so many other better options. You're only going to be seeing him on one map, and that's the only time you're going to be picking him or wanting to prioritize him, and maybe even ban him sometimes. X, still incredibly good. I'm going to put X at an S tier because I think he is worthy of a ban sometimes. I really do. With how annoying he actually is. Nothing with him has changed. He still does the same thing he's always been doing, and he's just incredibly annoying. Zentaro got recently buffed. I'm actually going to put... I think Zentaro at like a B or an A tier for the last patch. For the last tier list. I'm actually going to move him up to an S tier because he got recently buffed. They decreased, I think, 2 of his cooldowns by like 2 or 3 seconds, and he's incredible now. Incredibly good. He's kind of like the same thing as like a Juliet or an X, but just with a lot more mobility. And he's really difficult and really annoying to lock down. Especially if you're really good at him. If you're a really good Zentaro, you can just carry games right now. He's crazy. I think he's also another striker that's actually worthy of banning right now sometimes. Rune as a forward, I'm going to put him in an A tier. If you know how to use your abilities and you're decent at him, then you can play him as a forward. Like, he's decent, but I don't know. I wouldn't play him really much at all. I feel like Rune's kind of lacking right now. I don't know what they really need to do with him. He's also really, like, awakening dependent. Like, if you can get awakenings that can either, like, buff your impact abilities or, like, buff your creations with your portals, and or something that can actually extend your ult for your banish. He has one of like the best like alts in the game with banish, especially if you know how to use it. You can pretty much like banish out like 2 of the enemy team strikers and like get goals that way sometimes with like some really cheeky alts. I think that's the best thing about him. But it's just on such a huge cooldown, and the duration is just pretty low for an ult that has that high of a cooldown, unfortunately. But not bad. Just more of like awakening independent as well. You gotta get the awakenings he likes, otherwise he just doesn't really do much. And then last but not least, we got Feeny, which is the newest striker to the game. She actually got buffed significantly here, actually, with a micro patch about a week ago. They buffed her alt cooldown. They significantly reduced the cooldown on her alt, and they reduced the cooldown, I think, on her other 2 abilities by like 2 or 3 seconds. So if I were to put her in right now, she is allowed in ranks and everything. Like, you can play her in ranks, you can play her wherever. I think right now, with how she really is, I'd probably put her like an A tier for a forward. The problem with Feeny is she's just really high skill cap. And if you're not landing your abilities, or if you're not really doing anything, like, she's just worthless. Like, that's the problem. If you're a good Feeny, like, you can do a lot. Like, she is pretty good. Her ult's decently spammable now. But the main problem with her ult is it's only really good to actually, like, get a play off the core. You can't really trap people in your ult because they kind of walk away unless you, like, activate it early, and then you're taking less damage with it. So, and I feel like she needs a lot of changes, and she still needs to be buffed and kind of tweaked a little bit to make her a lot easier to play, or, like, reduce her cooldowns. She has more presence in the match. I think that's the thing she's kind of lacking with how difficult her abilities are to get value from. But apart from that, she does have potential. I wouldn't say she's like as good of like a legend or like a striker release as like Vice or Octavia was, but she's not bad. I just don't really care for her because she's kind of more of a high skill type striker that takes a lot of skill to play to get value out of. And a lot of times you're just better off playing a few different strikers that just kind of do the same thing as she does. There you have it, y'all. That is the forward tier list. Let me know what you guys think in the comments down below. 100% opinionated. I'm going to hop over and actually redo this for the goalies next. Alright, as for the goalie tier list, let's get right into it. Start off with IME. IME as a goalie is not that good. B tier. You're just better off playing a lot of other stuff for goalie right now. Asher as a goalie, I'm going to put it in A tier. Not bad, but nothing crazy. You can get away with playing her as a goalie. More kind of map dependent though. She's a little bit better on a few other maps. You can't really just pull her out and play her as a goalie as on the majority of the maps, like a lot of the other goalies can maybe do. Atlas as a goalie, I think it's A+. I think if you want to play Atlas, you're playing him as a goalie right now. And I think that's the only main way to actually play him, and you're probably going to be seeing him as a goalie. Drakkar, F tier. You do not want to be playing Drakkar as a goalie. If you're playing Drakkar as a goalie, you are throwing. There's a few other strikers in the game that are just, you're never ever going to be playing as a goalie. And if you do play them as a goalie, you are legit throwing. You deserve to be banned from ranked. Let's just get those out of the way right now. Juliet, F tier. You're never going to be playing Juliet as a goalie. Zentaro, if you play Zentaro as a goalie, you need to be banned from ranked. Come on now, what are you doing? Ramus as a goalie, what are you doing? Why are you playing Ramus as a goalie when there's all this other stuff you can be playing? Apart from that, I don't think there's any other that I'd say I would never play as a goalie, though. So next, we got Dubu, S tier. Probably still the best goalie in the entire game, apart from maybe one or two other strikers right now. Nothing with him has really changed. Just crazy. Really easy to play, and like he was meant to be, like he was pretty much designed to be a goalie. Like he was designed purely to be a goalie for the game, and that is what he's really meant to do, like with his kit and whatever he does. Especially with like how many different awakenings you can run with him and actually do really well with. And the same thing too with like a lot of the maps. Like Dubu is pretty much his entire like his entire body like pretty much it like blocks the goal gates on like a lot of the maps. Like 90% of the maps, like you can just stand in front of the goal gate and pretty much just block an entire goal gate just by standing there. And there's not many other strikers in the game that can actually do that just without even like any awakenings or anything. So Era as a goalie, pretty bad, C tier. Estelle as a goalie, I would put it in A tier. I've seen it work, and it can work if you're really good. I'll save Finny for last. Juno as a goalie, I would put it like a B tier. It can work, but it's pretty bad if you don't know what you're doing. I just think there's no reason to play Juno as a goalie when you can just play her as a forward and just carry the game most of the time without even trying. Kai as a goalie, S tier. Crazy good. If you want a goalie right now, I think you're just like last tier list and like last patch. I think you're looking at either Kai or Dubu for goalies right now. X, I would put at a D tier. He can work. Like I've seen X goalie work, and it actually did really good. But the guy was playing his ass off, and he played flawlessly to make it work. If you do not know what you are doing, you are borderline throwing by playing X goalie. Because he's really bad as a goalie. I would not recommend him at all, but he has a slight chance of working if you know what you're doing. Luna goalie. I'm putting Luna at an A tier for goalie just for the sheer fact that you need to know what you're doing. If you do not know how to play Luna and you don't know how she's played with her abilities and like what you're supposed to be doing at every single time in the match, like you should be playing Luna. Really high skill cap goalie, but she can work. I think her best, like she's probably the best as a goalie if you know what you're doing right now. Octavia as a goalie, C tier, really bad. Rune, I think, can be a good goalie, but I think the only problem with Rune is he's just really map dependent. I think the main map you're going to be seeing him play as a goalie is Night Market, because that map has it's split down the middle, and it's like his portals can take up like half of each side of the map. So, especially if you get like some creation buff awakenings or that increase the size of its portals or that type of thing, can be good. But apart from that, he's kind of map dependent. He's only good on maybe one, two, maybe 3 maps as a goalie. That's the problem with Ruin. And even then, you really need to know how to play him to actually put in work. Vice as a goalie is not good. Do not play Vice as a goalie. Believe me, I've tried to play Vice as a goalie for a long time already, and it just doesn't work. No matter what I do, no matter what I build, it just doesn't work. So, and then we got, last but not least, we got Feeney. Feeney as a goalie, I would not put very high. I think at like a B tier. I think the problem with Feeney is she has some really difficult to land abilities, and that is the main problem with her. Like, she doesn't have like really any way to actually like defend the goal. You kind of just have to stand there and try to hopefully like rely on like being able to core flip, or like hopefully like trap the core in your ult and save your ult cooldown just to try to maybe help you play goalie a little bit better if it gets past you. And even then, you have to play your ass off to try to actually be a good goalie. So I think if you want to play Finny right now, you're just better off playing her as a forward. I wouldn't really touch her as a goalie. You can probably argue even probably putting her down to C tier or even like D tier for some people, but I'm going to be generous and put her at a B tier because I did have a few Feenies that actually played really good for goalie so far, at least from what I've seen over the last 2 weeks since she got added. There was a few that did really well, but they were also playing their ass off, and they were like landing all their abilities and all that type of thing. So I don't know. There you have it, y'all. That is the goalie tier list for patch 2.3. Let me know what you guys think in the comments down below. If you guys like these tier list videos, I'll keep on bringing them your guys' way for every new major patch for Omega Strikers going forward. Be sure to leave a like, subscribe, and share the video. Would really appreciate it, so you guys do not miss out on any future content on the channel. Apart from that, I'm going to get out of here. Peace out, everybody, and thanks for watching. I really appreciate it.